Hello, welcome to part 2 of uncovering the missing secrets of magnetism, the RGB discovery. First time anybody has ever seen this on Earth. I contacted the inventor of the ferrocell yesterday after making this discovery, and he confirmed to me that of everybody that has a ferrocell, nobody has ever witnessed this before. I talked to him via phone, and he was excited. And this not only proves my principle of the missing secrets of magnetism, but also proves my principle in the last chapter of the book on the missing z-axis radial dielectric component of electromagnetism, which completely dismisses the photoelectric effect and gets rid of the wave-particle duality. Now, here you see white light. Remember, we have a ring of 10 LEDs. They're all emitting. They only have less than 1 millimeter separation between them. They're on 3.5 millimeter LEDs. Each LED is emitting a blue, a green, and a red separately. Together they create white light. But if I bring my inertial plane here, you can see I have a greenish blue on this pole and a reddish blue on this pole. And in the center I have red, green, and blue. I was so tired last night. I understood the implications of this, but since I've been awake for like 4 days, I didn't make the full implication until I woke up, and I thought, well, duh. The reason that the blue only exists, and you can actually see it over here, concentrated at the dielectric inertial plane, is because the wavelength of blue has a higher dielectric capacitance, just as proving my theory. That's why you have all three colors only concentrated at the dielectric inertial plane. And as you can see here, we have green on one pole and red on the other. And why is that? Since all diodes are emitting RGB at the same time, if you actually take the strip out, it is so intensely bright white, it's extremely intense. You cannot see the RGB separately. Now if I take it on either pole, what you see down here is a shadow image, the RGB at the inertial plane. It kind of looks, you can actually see it if you're down on an angle, but with RGB separation like this, you can see the centripetal. Now the centrifugal is only red, but the centripetal is also RGB. You can see it very weakly here and here. This large RGB down here, here, and here, where all three colors are, is further down at the midsection of the magnet where the dielectricity is concentrated at, is forced to. Not located at, but concentrated at. This is amazing. Like I said, this is the second part of the first time anybody has ever seen this. I contacted the inventor of this cell. He's told me, upon reception of the cell, that he's tested this cell endless ways. Him and his companions have tested it just enormous ways. They never thought of this before, but they weren't trying to uncover the secrets of magnetism. Now, the reason one side is green and the other side is red is because you get clockwise spin on one centrifugal, counterclockwise in the other, but on the centripetal, you can see all three colors coming together because it is this lowest pressure gradient for entry to the dielectric inertial plane, which is concentrated at and forced at the midpoint of every magnet, which you see right here. You see our RGB channels located at the center. So this is stunning. Now let's look at something else to prove this. Remember, red has less dielectricity in its pulse capacitance as per my theory, which is now proven. This is the 6th testing methodology, not the first, but the 6th. But this is also the first time anybody on Earth has ever seen this before. But let's take a look at the three channels separately. Let's take a look at red. Now, if you can see how intense and wide the red channel is, and how either centrifugal is rather well defined. Whoops. Let me turn it back on here. I hit the wrong button. Green is slightly tighter, so let's go red. Watch how it gets tighter on the inertial plane. Red, green, and blue. See how blue is almost non-existent? It is especially non-existent at either inertial plane. I mean, at either a centrifugal pole. but you can see it along the inertial plane, a very thin line. Now let's do the strobe effect and you can see the difference. Watch as when blue comes up, you'll notice that it disappears immediately here, and it disappears along the centrifugal of either pole. You'll notice that it goes from red, very visible, green to midway, blue to almost non-existent, except for along the inertial plane. You'll also notice on the blue channel, because the wavelength has a higher dielectric capacitance, which terminates at the dielectric inertial plane, which is where it is attracted to, you'll notice that the blue channel vanishes much sooner than the red or the green. Can you see that? Let me let it shift again. Let me do it this way so you can see it. It's red, green, blue is almost gone. And the centrifugal is displaced into almost nothing on the blue channel. Wonderful discovery. This is the 6th proof I have about the missing geometry of light. It explains the false conclusions of the correct observations of the photoelectric effect, for which that moron Einstein won a Nobel Prize. His observations were correct, but his conclusions were utterly wrong. Typical idiot. Once again, 2 different colored poles due to clockwise and counterclockwise, divergent, inverse polarity, clockwise or counterclockwise. They're obviously both spinning in the same directions, but that's why it's splitting up. All these LEDs are emitting RGB at the same time, and you could see our dielectric inertial plane contains all 3 components. Together we have our white light. Let's try another magnet, one a lot more powerful, a large disc, 1 1/4 inch N50, I believe. And you can see the definition a little bit better. This is a really powerful, rather expensive disc magnet. Slightly dangerous too. You can see the white light we have along our dielectric inertial plane. Right here. And we have our greenish blue here and our reddish blue here. All blue is pushed away from the centrifugal magnetism. Why? Because blue has a higher dielectric capacitance. And what have I been telling you about in this entire series? Electricity and magnetism move 180 degrees opposite each other. Now in a binding system like this, they seem apparently 90 degrees opposite each other, but remember the max inverse throw of 2 conjugate fields that are naturally a 180 degree repulsive is a double hyperbola like this, which is in an inverse sphere, and an inertial plane. Remember, every part of the magnet contains dielectricity and magnetism. It occurs at every point in the it is point in specific incommensurability. But just like fluid dynamics, the dielectricity is displaced, just like jumping your bathtub displaces the water. The capacitance increase from the dielectricity causes an increase of macromagnetic magnetism, and how these fields conjugate, naturally, logically, sensibly, demonstrably provable by myself. I've already made, what, 26, 27 videos. I mean, I could literally make another 30 more, and I've got like another 120 pages to add to the book, but I mean, there isn't a person alive that can refute me on any debate in a public forum on discussing magnetism. I'll trounce every single person walking this earth and breathing when it comes to the definition of magnetism. I wish you could see the steeper angle here. It's kind of hard to hold the camera, but you can actually see all 3 channels. Let's go back again and take a look at red. You see how wide the red channel is at the dielectric inertial? And the green, a little bit thinner, and blue is almost non-existent. Okay, here we go to like a purple view, where it's trying to give more blue. That's why you see the centrifugal are undefined. Green, blue, red, and here's our quote-unquote white light. But our white light, You can kind of see it over here at the edge. It is white light, but it is 3 tiny diodes within each little diode cell, emitting very intense red, green, and blue frequencies, which, if you were to look at it out in the dark or in open light, looks intensely white. But due to inverse centrifugal spin, and the fact that blue has a higher dielectric capacitance, which is repulsed by the magnetism, is pushed away from either pole of magnetism. Remember, magnetism is, as Faraday and Maxwell state, the dielectric field. Magnetism repulses dielectricity. That is why you will not find much blue at either pole. Now, that is why it looks bluish green and bluish red, a slight purple color and a slight darker green color. But the blue is concentrated only along the dielectric inertial. It is pushed there or at reintegration of the centripetal. Let's take a look at one of the poles. The reason this doesn't look like a super hypertrochoid is because there are only 10 LED cells versus the prior one that I was using, which has a lot more ringing this lens ferrocell. But these RGB channels are further down at the midsection, so ignore those. But all the centripetal are red, and all the centrifugal are red, but all the centripetal are RGB. You can see 3 strands of RGB entering into the centripetal. This is the first time using a ferrocell anybody has defined, and I confirmed with the inventor yesterday, the first time ever anybody has done this, and he congratulated me on this discovery. Actually, the potential for this in invention is kind of stunning. I've thought of a lot of things myself. You see the white light here? This is all 3 channels together, and that's why we have only red and greenish over here, because the high dielectric capacitance, which is repelled by magnetism, is pushed away from either pole of magnetism, or the dielectric field. Magnetism, remember, is definitionally spatial, radiative, centrifugal. The high dielectric capacitance of blue, and I got confirmation from this today from another person who said that his spectrometer showed that the dielectric inertial plane ate up the blue frequency of light. So I got further proof today. So I'm so happy to show you this, and like I said, this is the second video. The one I made really late last night. The sun was pouring through the window. First time anybody has ever seen this. This is my 6th proof now. I had 5, now I have 6. This is the cherry on top of a mountain of evidence. Now all I am interested in is proving this. I've proved it and I proved it and proved it. If this were a court of law, it would be over with. It'd be done. I'm not interested in convincing hard-headed skeptics with their head in the sand, because I've slaughtered their sacred cow concepts of what electromagnetism is, because it is not electromagnetic. Oliver Heaviside hinted at this. The formulas from Dr. Olaf Defimchenko's work absolutely state that it demands it. He won an enormous amount of awards, 2 PhDs, highly acclaimed, only died a few years ago. Extremely well acclaimed person. His books are incredible works of art. Unfortunately, he never draws the correct conclusion on what his formulas actually point to. I, however, he got 95% of the work done, but I got the remaining 5% done. But I'm just so happy to show you this. This is really the icing on the cake. Because all these many centuries, people have been trying to figure out what the nature of light is, and they came up with these wave-particle dualities, which spawned quantum nonsense. Spawned general relativity. There is no more wave-particle duality. Now we understand that electromagnetism, and I will expand on that in the last half of the book. Of course, it's obviously not about magnetism, but there are only 2 fundamental principles in the universe, co-principles, dielectricity and the dielectric field, which is the discharge of dielectricity, and that is magnetism. Magnetism is radiation by definition. That is what polarization means. Polarization, radiation, the creation of space. That which makes mass massive Okay, it's not in the nucleus. It is the inner atomic volume. What gives volume or polarization or space in picometers to all atoms is not dielectricity. It is not the nucleus. It is magnetism. This is the first time you have ever seen this. It is an enormous discovery. I proved with the inventor earlier that no one has ever witnessed this before or recorded this using the ferrocell. So I'm so happy to show this to you. I'm only interested in discovery. Everybody else out there flaps their lips, and they're so angry. A few of them are anyway. Some people are very proud to finally, actually, like I am, to uncover things. But some people have their head in their sand, and they're just so upset that you've slaughtered their pathetic sacred cow, because it's like someone that went to dragon hunting school for 30 years, and you knock on the door, and you come in, and you say, hey, you know, you've been wasting 30 years, there's no such thing as dragons, and, you know, they'll vociferously protest and tell you you're crazy, you're insane. Well, Einstein said this, well, Richard Feynman said that. Well, so what? The facts speak for themselves. Now, while it is true that you can come up with the correct experiments and draw the incorrect conclusions, I have proof after proof after proof that this is the missing secret of light, that it does have a z-axis radial dielectric component, which also proves and backs up my premise, among 14 other methodologies that I have, to show the absolute nature of what a magnet is from top to bottom, inside and out, how it works, why it is the way it is. Unravel the mystery. I will keep unraveling it for you. Although the second edition is full, it still needs more expanding. But it is full as it is, but there's a lot more to introduce, a lot more diagrams and pictures and proofs and stuff that will explain things and help you understand better. So I'm working very hard on that. There's so much to include, which is a good thing. I mean, it's better to have too much to include than not enough. When someone doesn't have enough, then usually their theory is pretty pathetic or weak. But I have enormous amounts to show you. And people love all the diagrams and the pictures, and especially the videos like this. You know, this video might be a little too long and verbose and boring, but no one has ever seen this before. I confirm with the inventor of this device that no one's ever tested it like this before, and no one's ever seen this before. But no one was looking at this. You know, they just figured, well, they'd look at magnetism, but they didn't know what they were looking for. I mean, I knew what to look for, which is why I tore this apart last night and removed the white LEDs and stuck in the RGB LEDs. I mean, I had an epiphany. It's like, well, obviously I need to test with RGB LEDs, because if my premise is correct, then the RGB will be separated. The red, green, blue will be separated. It'll be a different color at each pole, and all three will be at the center at the inertial plane. And guess what? When I built it, I was 100% accurate. 100%. Here it is. Produce it yourself. Don't complain to me. There's no trickery here. I've shown pictures of these little LEDs to people yesterday on a couple of forums, actually 3. So I'm so glad you watched, and I'm going to make a bunch of more instructional videos on uncovering the missing secrets of magnetism, getting into some of the fundamentals that people don't understand about incommensurability, and, you know, why the dielectricity is forced to or is concentrated at the inertial plane. It is really rather simple. It's not hard at all. It's kind of a hard concept at first because our minds aren't taught to think that way, especially from pathetic public school systems. We just did not grow up with a special sort of thinking methodology that ancient peoples used way back then. I mean, we marvel at the amazing creations of the pyramids and the Library of Alexandria, which of course is gone to us, but all the ancient marvels, all that stuff was created by a lost thinking methodology called retroduction. Anyway, I know I talked too much on this. I repeated myself several times, but sometimes, especially on new concepts, well, this isn't new. This was here the whole time. You just had to have the right person to know what the hell they were looking for. And I predicted with 100% accuracy that this is exactly what I'd find, and I was 100% proven accurate. So I'm glad to bring this to you. If you have any questions, let me know. I've duplicated this. I had a question today. I said, well, have you duplicated this with other magnets and other strength magnets? Yes, it works with square magnets, round magnets, disc magnets, all shapes and sizes, and all various strengths. So you will get this effect off a tiny little 1/4 inch square magnet. Exact same thing, so it doesn't matter. So it's over with. I mean, I can actually say it's over with. I don't have to convince anybody, I only have to prove it. And if this were a jury trial, it's over. It's done and it's over. There is no more. This is the final proof. This isn't the only proof. Like I said, this is my 6th one. But the missing geometry of light is proven. Light is not merely electromagnetic. It has a z-axis radial dielectric component, just like a coaxial cable, okay? The shorter the wavelength, like in blue, gamma, X-ray, the higher the capacitance. That shorter wavelength means more dielectric pulses, versus infrared, where you have pulse, 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 pulse. You have higher kinetic energy and greater energy transfer. In blue wavelength and shorter, you get pulse, 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 pulse. You kind of get the idea. That is why blue and frequencies and wavelengths in the blue range and more kinetic powers are attracted to the dielectricity, because they are extremely dielectrically capacitant. My mouth is dry. I've talked too much. I'm just so happy at this discovery, and I confirmed with the inventor of this device that nobody ever tested with it this way, and nobody's ever witnessed this before. And he got back with me today. He confirmed that it sucks up blue wavelength. He tested it with a spectrometer, so I got double confirmation. He holds many patents. Awesome character. So thanks for watching. You've seen it here first, not only on YouTube, but you've seen it here first in the entire world. Thanks for watching. More videos to come, and remember to ask me any questions that you have, because I love answering them. Thanks.